Hello everyone, this is the Fans Politics Asia, and this is the situation report or the summary for the day of 994 to 995 for the 13th to 14th of November. Day 1000 is coming. Scary. Anyway, this what you see on screen, this is the estimated, a very inaccurate estimate from DPA. Very inaccurate. Don't quote me, saying like this is like the Holy Bible or whatever. No, it's not. This is just a very rough estimate of the capture of the annexation of what I call the Donbas Zapka region. So the annexation for Luhansk 99.84, as we all know, is close to full capture. It's just the matter of Bilohorivka. And then we have Donetsk 50% plus a bit. And then Zaporizhzhia is 64 to almost 65%, and the Kherson region is 81%. So this is the estimate. This has not included the latest frontline progress over the past 2 days. So this is just before that. Okay, so anyway, you can actually see the number is also here. It's all now divided into these 4 categories. So anyway, we're going to continue into the situation report. We're going to start off with the Kherson front. So at the Kherson front, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry continued to talk about fighting in the Dnipro direction or the Dniprovsk direction. Exactly where the fighting is really unclear. Shelling is reported at Antonivka, Sadove, Pontiativka, and Mykolaiivka. As well as what is this called? Kurakhove. So this is actually all by the Russian Defense Ministry's reporting. So that's all. This shelling reports, not very important. This is not this pretty sleepy of a front line. Over the Zaporizhzhia front, at the Zaporizhzhia region, there is still continued hints of a possible Russian offensive over in the Kupiansk and the Kharkiv sector, which is these 2 sectors. And there is fighting reported over in Petikaki. Shelling is reported at Stepnohursk. Skibaki was actually reported to have fighting. Novoandrievka, Novodanilivka, and towards the Kharkiv direction. The information is coming from both Russian and Ukrainian Defense Ministry. Petikaki is by Russia, Skibaki is by Russia, Novoandrievka by Ukraine, Kharkiv by Russia, and the direction of Novodanilivka is by the Ukrainians. So you can see that both Russian and Ukrainian Defense Ministry are talking about some kind of a Russian action around this area here. So but of course, this is across 2 days, so it looks like a lot of arrows, like 5 different arrows all at the same time, but these are actually across 2 days. So it's pretty much still probing. The Russians are still probing the lines, but it is very ticklish, very itchy. That it seems like there is some kind of big thing is going to happen in the near future. And talking about big things is the Velyka-Novosilka offensive, which I short form as VN offensive in the Frontline Changes report, which I've already published around more than 12 hours ago. So yesterday I didn't manage to do a SITREP because Stefano from Mazarin Geopolitics was in Singapore. I went to meet him, so just messed up my schedules, so I didn't manage to do the SITREP, so which is why it's a 2-day report today. Either way, the Russians are on the VN offensive with fighting reported at Rivnopil, so Novodarivka. They are now moving towards Novopil, Zelenipole, Temerivka. So this area here is really dangerous right now. If the Russians are able to penetrate just like what they did towards Yasna Polyana, then there's going to be like a horrible situation. Fighting is also reported along the central line towards Velyka-Novosilka, which is over here, at Makarivka as well, and towards Blahodane, which is over here. This Blahodane, also known as Otyabr. If you actually look at the Russian reporting, they will call this Otyabr, but it's Blahodane in the Google Maps in Ukrainian. Fighting is reported, of course, towards Velyka-Novosilka. There's fighting reported east of Urzane, west of Novodonetsk, at Novodonetsk itself, as Zolota Neva and Shatarsky moving in the direction of Velyka-Novosilka. And the Russian sources have reported that the Russians have actually captured these areas here. The Russians have made progress in the direction of Velyka-Novosilka, hitting into the rear position. This is actually very highly plausible because the Ukrainian lines is here. They are defending against a push from the south, and all the defenses are all geared in that direction. It's mostly southward facing. Maybe there's a few from Velyka Novosilka is coming from the facing the east, but ultimately the Russians, this is actually the weak spot, with the Russians now doing a flanking operation into the rear and the side of Velyka Novosilka. So this is actually very, very concerning. And as I mentioned, if the Russians manage to make some progress around the Zeleny Pole Temerivka region and they push into the rear position, this would be an overwhelming strategic big arrow envelopment of Velyka Novosilka. And I personally, I don't think that will going to be happen in time, because I think Velyka Novosilka will fall before that happens. Given the fact that the Russians have now launched a real major offensive in this area here. In the latest information, both acknowledged by the Ukrainian mapping, Deep State UA, as well as the announcement by the Russian Defense Ministry, Rivnopil over here has been captured by the Russian forces as they continue to push northward from Rivnopil direction in the direction of Novosilka. So and of course this defense line in the southeast of Novosilka. So this entire region is now a freaking mess for the Ukrainians. And but I mean, this is amazing to watch, because Velyka Novosilka has always been Ukrainian. Yep. Velyka Novosilka itself have never fallen to the Russians. The closest the Russians have went is Vremivka, just next door over here. And even for Vremivka, Russia only captured half of it. They never really fully 100% captured the entire thing. And then after that, Ukrainian the 2023 counteroffensive pushed all the way to Uruzhaini, which is over here. So now the Russians are now coming back. So this is going to be like quite a disaster right now. And this is on top of all the major offensive that is capturing a lot of grounds in the other areas of the Ukrainian war. So, and of course, this is only possible because of what is happening next door over in the Uspenivka front. So at the Uspenivka region, this is Uspenivka. So the prime objective in this sector right here, right now, at this moment. So as mentioned just now, fighting is reported at Shatarsky and Zoltaneva with the push towards Velyka Novosilka and some alleged capture in this area here, moving towards Velyka Novosilka. The Russian forces also continue to fight in Maximivka, towards Konstantinopolsk, towards Uspenivka, at Trudove, towards Sukiali. Shelling is reported at Yatarne. Fighting is reported at Katerinivka, Konstantinivka, Antonivka, towards Dalny. And of course, whatever on top is actually part of Kurakhove, which is actually fighting in Mesmelinivka region and Kurakhove. So this sector is also pretty bad, with the Russian forces now gaining more grounds in the northwest of Maximivka as they push towards Zelenivka. And according to the mapping by the Ukrainian mapping, Deep State UA acknowledged that the Russians have actually made significant progress in the south of Konstantinopolsk in the direction of Uspenivka. So this is continued to develop, and if the Russians took out or captured or even just simply fight at Uspenivka, the entire Ukrainian eastern flank from Uspenivka will be in danger of encirclement as the Russians continue to push towards Uspenivka from Dalny. And Dalny is close to capture at this moment, so this is getting really bad. The Ukrainians are conducting heavy counter-offensive operations in the south of Kurakhove. Multiple geolocation of Ukrainian tank getting hit. This is by military summary. This is another tank. I think this is the Leopard 2. And then this is another Russian airstrike. So heavy fighting is currently happening in the south of Kurakhove. And this also, there was also a footage that was disputed with an entire armored column getting destroyed, allegedly, by a Leopard tank. But further stories and rumors say that it's actually two different footage, and there's two different Leopard tanks, and both of them got destroyed by Lancet later. But it still doesn't change to the fact that the entire column was shot at by Leopard tank, which is pretty spectacular in terms of the footage. And it doesn't, but while I actually shared it, because I was out, like I mentioned yesterday, I was out. I just shared it, and I said that it wiped out the entire convoy, the entire column. But it doesn't change the fact that Russian soldiers, many of them do survive. Those in the armored personnel carrier managed to escape into the forest line, and but clearly 100% someone died in that assault. So doesn't matter how you want to cope about it. It's war. People still die, and that's how it is. And the leopard tanks still prove that they can fight, but there is also rumors that saying that the shells actually bounced off the front armor for the, I think, the T-72 or something. So whatever it is, it's just part of the war. It looks really cool, but someone dies. When every time we see this kind of footage. So I prefer no getting excited over this kind of footages from a game. Be it Battlefield or be it some kind of a like war game, Red Dragon, Warno, or Operation Flashpoint, which is 2.0, Arma. I mean, those I feel like it's interesting, it's very cool. But when it's kind of some kind of real life footage, I can't help to be reminded that someone dies, despite the footage looks really cool. Because it's nearly impossible during peacetime to witness a real tank and on armor attack. Then and yeah, so yeah, it's just a reminder that people die, be it the Ukrainian side or the Russian side, be it who you support. Both sides are fellow human beings. The parents spent 10-20 years, more than 10 years definitely, grooming this cute little baby into this adult that decided to go to war, or be it they voluntarily or getting forced. They are someone's children, and the amount of investment put into this person, is just wasted by a FPV drone or some kind of attack. So it's kind of depressing if you really think in that sense. So whatever it is, yeah, I saw a lot of comments about this footage, but please, humans, they are all humans. So anyway, this is the current strategic situation in this sector. And of course the front line change around this sector. As you can see, the Russians taking wrong color, taking the entire tree line around here, and this poised them to be able to attack Uspenivka or this is what is this called again? I forgot what this called. Konstantinopolsk. So that's this area. The tree line captured is in the northwest of Maximivka. Looks like this, in the direction of Zelenivka. And in the Antonivka region, this is pretty significant. The Russian forces operating on the western part of Antonivka. This basically confirms that the Russians have actually advanced and captured most of Antonivka. So this comes despite that the Russian Defense Ministry announced the capture of Antonivka on the 6th, which is clearly not true. As in the footage, the Russians are still doing clearing operations, and they do meet resistance in some of the houses. Fierce firefight happened. Some of the houses got entirely blown up because they are unable to eject the Ukrainian soldiers. So the fighting at Antonivka continues, but I believe that within the next 24-48 hours, we're going to see the capture of Antonivka. So, because the Russians have basically progressed most of it already. And that's all from this area here. I believe I covered most of it. So, down there's some small change. This is actually just a Ukrainian mapping. They note that this area is captured. The area around it is actually a Russian claim, so which is from the previous SITREP from 2 days ago. So that's the situation in this sector. Oops, accidentally moved that. Over in the Kurakhove sector. So this the Kurakhove sector. I covered the below, so I'm gonna go on top a bit so that we can actually cover the other stuff. So in this area here, disaster happens for the Ukrainians as well. Russian and Ukrainian sources so both announced the capture of Velyka by the Russian forces. Latest mapping by the Ukrainians have shown that the Russian forces have already entered into the north of Novosilka, or rather, they have fought to the north of Novosilka, as they have already captured Velyka itself, and the fighting is moving towards Bereski. And north of Velyka as well, Russian forces have also consolidated all the areas in the north of it. as they push in the direction of Bereski as well. Fighting is reported at Kurakhove as mentioned, and Maximilianivka was mentioned by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. They're still mentioning Maximilianivka, but that was from 13th. And then Russian airstrike in the south of Kurakhove, Fab 500 was dropped, geolocated. Fighting is reported at Sonsivka, Vosnesenka, as well as Novosilka. Vosnesenka is the same thing. Ukrainian mapping and the Russian Defense Ministry both declared that Russian forces have captured Vosnesenka. And Novosilka is near full capture by the Russian forces as they continue to close this tighten the noose around the Ukrainian forces. And based on the strategic situation right here, it looks like the Ukrainians is going to struggle to hold this line, this salient. I think this is going to collapse. I think it's going to be a quick collapse. And the next line, because from Somsivka, the Russian forces could easily close the gap towards Staritany. So the Ukrainians in this area here is just not in a good position. They could potentially build a defense line around Bereski and along the lake, but and maybe go up to Sonsivka if they are able to hold Sonsivka. But this withdrawal might be inevitable. I don't think the Ukrainians can hold this position. So this is the current strategic situation and situation over in the Kurakhove sector. And also let me know, if this format of reporting for situation report is better, because I don't zoom in and zoom out so much. So if you watch to this point, 16 minutes, yeah, please subscribe. The reality is that if all of you guys who have not subscribed all press subscribe at the same time, DPA will cross 100,000 subscribers. Can you imagine that? You contributing to 100,000 subscribers. So everybody just click, and we'll reach there. Anyway, you watch to 16 minutes, why not? So that's the situation over in the Kurakhove sector. And there is a bridge. So I need to zoom in now. This bridge that links, there's this across this swampy, wet region between the two sides of Kurakhove. This bridge was allegedly destroyed by a Russian missile strike. So that happened, which is kind of interesting. So maybe the Russians want to secure this part, and they want to leave the crossing, the only opening crossing, to be here, so that it's easier to concentrate on. So maybe that's what they want to do. But of course, that also make it easier for the Ukrainians to defend. There is, of course, another crossing along this railway line. So the Russians could potentially attack from the north as well. So it's not impossible. So let's see how this goes. So moving away from the Kurakhove sector, we now move into the Selidivka sector, which is part of the Pokrovsk Front. So this is in this Selidove region, Russian forces are now fighting at Kurakhove, Petrievka, towards Zovte. This is the first time Zovte was actually mentioned by any kind of reporting, and fighting is reported at Pustinka. There is frontline changes over at Yurievka with this is the latest geolocation. Is today's geolocation, with Russian forces making some slight advance over Yurievka. Fighting is reported at Novo-Oleksievka and pushing towards Pushkine. And then there's fighting reported at Novo-Dmitrievka and towards Zoria. So maybe the arrow is below. Towards Zoria. So this is the current strategic situation over at Selidove region. The main push seemingly still, if I zoom out a bit, you can probably see. So the Russian forces pushing in this direction towards Pristinki. But I feel like this is the main push. Along the railway line again. And as the Russian forces captured more grounds around Petrivka, and this goes along the vector of direction, moving along the direction of the railway line as they continue to want to progress along the railway. So that's actually interesting to me. The Russians have not fully captured Petrivka, which is kind of interesting that they continue to push on without fully capturing Petrivka nor Kurakhove. So that's also interesting to me. So fighting reported at Zotev is actually mentioned by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. This is the first time we have mapped all the way to this point. This is the furthest the Russians have gone. So very, very interesting fighting in the Donetsk front, in the Donetsk region, which is also part of the Donetsk front. So over at the Pokrovsk sector of the Pokrovsk front. The Russian forces are continuing their standoff operations around here, with fighting reported at Daschenke, Lisivka, Sukia, Kurutia, Minokhrad, Promin, and Mariolibivka. As I mentioned quite a few times already, I think the Russians are just holding the line around here. They are holding this front line, and the Ukrainians also are trying to hold the line as well, because they believe that they are doing defensive operation, but the Russians are actually also conducting pinning operation. So the Ukrainians are going to pin here, while the Russians are actually making the real push elsewhere. So this is what I think is currently happening, as the Russians probably cannot swallow two major city battles at the same time in the same sector. So there's Minokhrad and Pokrovsk. So if the Russians going to push both of them at the same time, yeah, I think it's a bit too much. I think the strategic situation around here would mean that the Russians will be a bit thin in this sector. So most likely they're going to do one massive big arrow flanking operations before they will go for Pokrovsk or Minokhrad. It looks like they're going to be the case. So anyway, the logistic here is already in a mess for the Ukrainians. So I don't think it matters that hugely. Of course, Pokrovsk remains to be operational as a logistic hub at this moment. So we shall see how these continue to move on. There's nothing else in the northern flank. We move into the New York front. At the New York front, the fighting is reported over in Sukabalka, Nelipivka. Nelipivka is mentioned by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry on the 13th. However, fighting is already moving on to Novopaske, Leonidivka, Skibinivka, and Toretsk, as well as Druzhba. So this is the few regions. Novopaske is actually also known as Petrivka, is mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry, whereas the Ukrainians do also talk about Skibinivka and Toretsk. So it's a bit weird that we are still talking about Nelipivka at this moment. This looks like an impossible salient to defend, but somehow it is what it is. So, and there is still some slight frontline change over at Toretsk, with Russian forces geolocated west of the stadium, with the Russian forces making some slight progress. So very heavy fighting. I think for the lack of progress, looks like this. The Ukrainians finally sent in some very capable troops to fight at Toretsk. So things are really slowing down a lot. But don't worry, the Russians put out the hand and show the thumb. Good. As they have a small head. Yeah. So, and we move on to, over in the area of Druzhba, there is also fighting reported at Dilievka. This is one of those weird ones that is not here, not there. There's another Dilievka around here, which the Russian Defense Ministry mentioned is part of the Bakhmut side of the forces. So I'm not sure. The Ukrainians always talk about Dilievka while lumping them together with Toretsk. So yeah. So there's two Dilievka. So the judgment call is that these two Dilievka is both engaged at the same time. So they're going to get married, and they're going to have a wedding dinner, and yeah. So moving on over in the Bakhmut front. The Bakhmut front over the past 2 days seems to get a bit hot. Over in the southern flank, we have fighting reported, as mentioned just now, fighting at Dilievka. Russian forces geolocated in the new area of the canal, signifying the Russians have made some progress in the northwest of Kupiansk. This does not necessarily mean that the entire south of Klishchiivka is fully captured by the Russian forces. This is not indication of that. Fighting is reported towards Pishchane and Steposhki. Geolocation of Ukrainian forces south of the mining hill confirmed that the Ukrainians are still in the region defending this area here. So tentatively, this continues to be very, very foggy, very, very unclear. Not transparent, very opaque. We're not clear exactly where the front line is over here. The disparity between the Ukrainian and the Russian front line is massive. Ukrainian believe the lines look like this. The Russians believe the lines look like this. So there is a massive gap of over 3 kilometers at the furthest between the realities of the two. So let's see how this continue to play out as we continue to eat popcorns. Watching people die. Over in the Chasiv region, Chervony and Mykolaievka both see Russian airstrikes happened around here. Not particularly important. I'm quite sure there's way more airstrikes happening on a daily basis than geolocated or captured on video. So like I said, all these geolocation, always don't think too much about it. All the footages you see online, on Telegram, on Twitter, is because someone wants you to see it. That's all. It's all part of information war. It's all part of narcissism at the very least. So no, don't think too much about all these footages. Similar situation with the Kurakhove, the engagement between the Leopard tanks with the Russian armored column. They just one small instance of hundreds of incidents or thousands of incidents on a daily basis in this war. So yeah, capturing on footage is just they happen to be there and they happen to see it. But fighting continues to be happening all across the war, the front lines. So no, don't put too much weight on all these things. Similarly, with this geolocation about Russian airstrike, it just happened that the drone saw it. Just happened that they post about it. Hundreds of bombs getting dropped every single day. Doesn't mean that the other places do not receive airstrikes. They do. So, and the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, if you look at their report, they actually tells you the long list of towns and settlements getting airstrikes and artillery strikes, which is so long that it's pointless to even map it. So this is what it is. And in the northern flank of the Bakhmut front, Russian forces are fighting in the region of Kurakhove Front towards Minkivka, towards Privylya, as well as in the area of Zeleniansky. And this reports by Russian Defense Ministry, Privylya is Russian Defense Ministry, Zeleniansky is Russian Defense Ministry. So these are across the 2 days, 13, 14. So the Privylya and Minkivka was attacked on the 13th, reported on the 13th. Zeleniansky and Kurakhove was over the past 24 hours being reported. So there is some concerted effort. All 4 arrows that did not happen at the same time. So there is some actions that the Russians are doing, maybe trying to improve the strategic or tactical positioning around this area here. So we'll continue to watch how this goes. Like I mentioned a long time ago and many times, I feel like the Russians should hit right Alexandrivka and then go for Kryvyi and the entire Siversk front will be gone. So, but anyway, we shall see how this continue to play out. Over the Siversk front, Russian forces are shelling Riznikivka. Fighting is reported at Kupiansk. According to Ukrainian Defense Ministry, Russians still talk about Siversk. There is an airstrike in Siversk, missile strike on Siversk, and airstrike on Siversk. There is a alleged fighting in the region of Donetsk, but I'm not sure how. But this is reported by the by the Russian Defense Ministry. Maybe it's just shelling. So that's all for this region in the Siversk front. Over the Kreminna front, fighting is reported in the Siversk forestry. The Russian Defense Ministry very adamant that there is fighting in the forest over the past 2 days. Fighting is reported at Toretsk, Zaporizhzhia, and Kherson. So that's all. Still very penny in this region, still pinning operations. I don't think the Russians are serious about the offensive in this area. Over in the Svetove front, at the Svetove front, we have fighting reported at Nevsky. Some slight frontline change over at the south of Makiivka. Fighting is reported towards Katerinivka, Druzilubivka, Sheneskina, and Novosilka. So that's the current situation around here. Don't put too much hope on this area. It's always super slow, as the front line is really long. From Novosilka all the way to Novosilka is 20 kilometers, almost 20 kilometers. It's a very, very huge front line. So it's just that the curvature of the earth, projected on a flat surface, it makes it look like this is not a very big place, but it's actually very, very, very big. So we move further up to the Borova sector. This Borova. At the Borova sector, fighting is reported into Bohoslavka. Fighting is reported at Lozova, Zeleny High, Peshotravneve, and towards Novoplatonivka. Novoplatonivka is mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry. It could be just shelling. So there is some kind of a rain, dropping down. It's raining right now on Borova, raining Russians. So that's all from this area. And we move further up north to the Pishchane front. At the Pishchane front, as mentioned just now, Bohoslavka is mentioned and Lozova. Fighting is reported at Pishchane, Koleniskivka, Krylyakivka, Zarizove, as well as Klishkivka. There's shelling reported over at Kisharivka as well, as mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry. Yep. So that's the current situation in this sector. It's very weird. Ukrainians are still talking about fighting in the region of Koleniskivka and Krylyakivka, despite the Russians already mentioned the capture of the two places, and Ukrainians also mentioned about Klishkivka. So anyway, we shall see when would the Ukrainians just give up talking about these places to quietly acknowledge that they have lost all these areas. Over at the Kupiansk front, ridiculous things happened. Russian forces teleported into the middle of Kupiansk. I think they have acquired the chronosphere, and they managed to transport and teleport immediately into Kupiansk. Otherwise, they actually stormed down the road, the entire straight road into Kupiansk itself. Maybe the Ukrainian defenders in this area here are sleeping on the job, or they just abandoned position without the command knowing. The Russians suddenly appeared here, and this is acknowledged by the Ukrainian mapping. They actually drew this line as well as a gray zone. And however, because of this crazy situation, Ukrainian mapping have drawn that the Russians have firm control around this area here. So this becomes a capture. And this makes the entire Ukrainian claim that they still have position all the way to Sinkivka looks a bit stupid. But we shall see how this continue to play out. Fighting is reported at Kusherivka and Petropavlivka as well as Hulubivka. And the fact that Petropavlivka and Kusherivka is mentioned by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry just make the Ukrainian mapping look even more stupid. So, yeah, stupid. Stupido. Stupiske. Stupidovo. Yeah, all these are all places in Ukraine. Yeah, anyway, so that's all from the Kupiansk front. We'll continue to see whether this ever becomes something real, or would this be just a one-time suicide attack that they just died. Sometimes you just play computer games, you send your troops to scout the enemy base, and then you forgot about them, and then they just die inside. Something like this. I'm not sure. So there's some stupid thing. This looks like a guitar, as I mentioned in the frontline changes report. This is a guitar. So this yeah. Moving on over at the Kupiansk into the Kharkiv front. At the Kharkiv front, the Russian forces continue this very expensive, as in very big harassment campaign. So it's so big that I can't even put it across I can't even zoom in. So Russia. So I'm going to cut it into half. So in the Voschansk region, Russian forces attack in the Voschansk at Taike. There's shelling reported at Vishcha. There's geolocation of FPV drone strike in the south. So that's all from this area here. So I can ignore Taike right now. So I can zoom in like this. Yeah. And further on, there is fighting reported at Klipoke, Lipsi, Vysoka Yaruha, which sounds very Japanese to me, Udi, as well as Onorobivka. Yeah. So these are the other areas that the Russians have attacked. So very, very random here and there. So we shall see. I think I got a deep suspicion this is going to lead to some kind of increased buffering on the Kharkiv front. So the Russians may do an offensive to increase the buffer zone. Moving into the Kursk front. At the Kursk front, we have a lot of fighting in the north and the western flank. But first, we need to talk about the southern flank. The southern flank, the Russian sources, Ryba, talk about there is still Ukrainian presence in the eastern outskirts. There's still Ukrainians around here, but I cannot see their mapping change. They didn't go into details, so I can't tell. So this invalidates a bit of what they said previously, that they have, that the Russians have captured all these areas here. So, but we shall wait and see when they will show a more detailed mapping. Otherwise, fighting is reported at Kurakhove. Ukrainian mapping have shown that the Russian forces have captured and reached the border in the region of Spanoe or south of Borki. So this area here, the Russians have confirmed to have captured some grounds around here. So they reach the border. So I believe the Russians will continue to go on to secure the rest of the border as the attention is largely at Blakovo. So, and we move on to the crazy front lines. In the northern flank, the Russian forces are conducting their offensive in this area here. Fighting is reported at Kreminna, Novaya Surkina, with Russian forces geolocated in it, most likely capturing the entire settlement. Fighting is reported at Staraya Surkina as well. And there is, of course, part of the western flank. Fighting is reported at Leonidovo as well as Novo-Ivanovka. Ukrainian forces are counter-attacking as well. They are fighting in the area of Novaya Surkina as well. And and then we're going to move to the western flank like this. So we're going to move the arrow up. Ukrainian forces are counter-attacking also at Alexandria, Novo-Ivanovka, at Nizhny Klin. Russian forces are fighting at Darino and Nikolaevo Darino. So that is the current situation in the western flank of the this Kursk front. So if I zoom out strategically, you can see that the Russians are pushing in a multiple location in the northern flank, and then Novo-Ivanovka, Darino, Nikolaevo Darino. So this is the current situation. Ukrainian forces are focusing their attention largely in the center part, whereas they are trying to plug the hole in the north. So that's all from the Kursk front. Nothing at Novi put. Hopefully this ends the chapter. People can stop dying at this useless front line. And that's it. So this is the summary for the day of 994 to 995 for the 13th to the 14th of November. Do press the like button, subscribe. And like I said, if you watch to this point, you should sub. And if all of you press the subscribe button, because usually at least 50% or more is not subscribed. If all of you press subscribe at the same time, DPA will immediately go over 100k subscribers. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next update.